The chilling cries of wolves echoed through the night, growing closer with every passing second. A frail quarter horse, tied helplessly to a tree, struggled against the biting wind, its eyes wide with fear. Abandoned and left for dead, its fate seemed sealed. But just as the darkness closed in, an extraordinary act of courage sparked a miracle that no one could have imagined. Stay with us for a story of survival, resilience, and the power of second chances. The faint light of dawn crept over the rugged terrain, painting the dense forest in hues of silver and gray. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth, and the occasional rustling of leaves broke the eerie silence. In this desolate wilderness, a single tree stood out, a tree to which a sickly quarter horse was tied. Its once proud frame was now frail, ribs jutting out under its dull, matted coat. The animal's legs trembled under its own weight, and its eyes, sunken and lifeless, stared at the horizon as if searching for something, or someone, that wasn't coming. Nearby, a group of wolves prowled the forest edge, their glowing eyes locked on the helpless creature. Their low growls blended with the rustling wind, a chilling prelude to what seemed inevitable. The horse shifted weakly, trying to pull free, but the rope held firm, a cruel reminder of the abandonment it had suffered. Not far from this scene, a humble farmer named Elias prepared to embark on his daily route through the forest. His small, weathered farm sat nestled at the edge of the woods, a place where he and his family struggled to make ends meet. Despite his limited means, Elias was known in the village for his kind heart and unwavering determination. That morning, something tugged at him, an inexplicable pull urging him to take the path deeper into the forest, a path he hadn't traveled in years. As Elias trudged forward, his boots crunching against the frosty ground, he couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that he was about to witness something that would change everything. Unbeknownst to him, fate was leading him to an encounter that would test his resolve, ignite his faith, and redefine what it meant to believe in second chances. The morning sun barely broke through the gray clouds as Elias stood in the barn, watching thunder try to stand. The horse's legs trembled with each attempt, and his breathing was still shallow. But there was something in his eyes now, a faint flicker of life that Elias hadn't seen the day he found him tied to that tree. "Come on, boy," Elias murmured, holding out a small bucket of water. "Just one step at a time." Thunder's ears twitched at the sound of Elias' voice, and slowly, he shifted his weight forward. His frail legs struggled under his body's weight, but he managed to stand for a moment before wobbling back down. Elias crouched beside him, stroking the horse's thin neck. "You're stronger than you think. We'll get through this." Inside the small farmhouse, Marta stood at the window, her brows furrowed as she watched Elias in the barn. She shook her head and sighed deeply. When he came inside for breakfast, she couldn't hold back her worries anymore. "Elias, I don't understand," she began, setting a plate of bread and eggs in front of him. "Why are you doing this? That horse is barely alive, and we're already struggling." Elias looked at her, his voice calm but firm. "Because he deserves a chance, Marta. Just like we all do. You saw him, no one else was going to help. But we don't have the money or resources for this," Marta argued, frustration creeping into her tone. "You've been working non-stop, and for what? He might not even survive." Elias paused, taking a sip of his coffee before answering. "I know it doesn't make sense. But sometimes, you have to fight for what seems impossible. I can't just give up on him." Marta sighed but didn't say more. Deep down, she knew Elias' stubbornness wasn't something she could change, and despite her fears, there was a small part of her that wanted to believe he was right. Over the next few days, the routine became grueling. Every morning, Elias carried fresh hay and water to Thunder's stall, speaking softly to him as he worked. The horse, though still weak, began to eat more regularly, and Elias took that as a sign of progress. In the evenings, he would clean Thunder's wounds, carefully applying ointment to the scars that covered his body. The process was slow and painstaking, but Elias didn't complain. He knew Thunder needed him, and he was determined to give the horse a fighting chance. But outside the farm, the whispers in the village grew louder. At the local tavern, where farmers and townsfolk gathered to share stories and news, Elias' decision to rescue Thunder was the subject of ridicule. "Did you hear about Elias?" one man asked, leaning over his beer. "He's wasting his time on that broken horse. Should have let the wolves have it." Another man laughed, shaking his head. "He'll regret it soon enough. That horse won't survive the month." The laughter and mocking comments didn't bother Elias, but Marta heard them every time she went into town. Each remark felt like a weight pressing down on her shoulders. That evening, as Elias sat by Thunder's side in the barn, Marta joined him. "People are talking," she said quietly, her arms crossed as she leaned against the doorway. "They think you've lost your mind." Elias didn't look up. He continued brushing Thunder's coat, his movements slow and deliberate. "Let them talk," he replied. "They don't know what this horse has been through. And they don't know what he's capable of." Marta watched him for a moment, her expression softening. She still didn't fully understand why Elias was so committed to saving Thunder, but there was a quiet determination in his voice that she couldn't argue with. One morning, as Elias led Thunder out of the barn for some fresh air, a neighbor passing by on the dirt road stopped to watch. The man leaned on the fence, a smirk on his face as he called out, "Elias. Still trying to save that bag of bones?" Elias didn't respond right away. He guided Thunder slowly across the yard, letting the horse take small, careful steps. Only when Thunder stopped to rest did Elias turn to the man. "You can laugh if you want," he said evenly. "But this horse has more fight in him than you'll ever understand." The man chuckled but didn't push further. As he walked away, Elias turned back to Thunder, patting his neck gently. "Ignore them, boy. They'll see soon enough." Thunder's steps grew steadier over the next few weeks. His ribs, though still visible, were no longer as prominent, and his coat began to show a faint shine. Elias started introducing light exercises, guiding the horse around the yard and encouraging him to stretch his legs. Every small improvement felt like a victory. But the work was far from easy. Thunder had moments of fear and hesitation, flinching at sudden movements or loud noises. Elias suspected the horse had endured a harsh past, one that left him wary of humans. Patience became Elias' greatest tool, and he never rushed Thunder, giving the horse time to trust him. One evening, as Elias was brushing Thunder down after their exercises, his son Pedro entered the barn. The young boy had been watching from a distance, curious about his father's efforts. Now, he stepped closer, his eyes wide with wonder. "Papa," Pedro asked, "do you think Thunder will get better?" Elias paused, looking at his son. He crouched down to meet Pedro's gaze. "I don't know, son," he admitted. "But I do know that Thunder has something special. He's a fighter. And sometimes, that's all you need to overcome the odds." Pedro nodded, his face thoughtful. "Can I help?" he asked after a moment. Elias smiled, ruffling the boy's hair. "Of course you can. Thunder could use all the help he can get." From that day on, Pedro joined his father in caring for the horse. He brought water and hay, helped brush Thunder's coat, and even walked alongside the horse during their exercises. His enthusiasm lifted Elias' spirits, and for the first time in weeks, the barn was filled with the sound of laughter. As the days turned into weeks, the transformation in Thunder became undeniable. His once frail legs were now sturdier, and his coat, though still patchy, began to regain its natural sheen. The spark in his eyes grew brighter, and with every cautious step he took, Elias felt a surge of pride. But Thunder's journey wasn't without setbacks. One stormy afternoon, as dark clouds loomed over the farm, Elias decided to guide Thunder into the open field for a longer walk. The wind howled through the trees, causing Thunder to stop in his tracks, his body trembling with fear. "It's just the wind, boy," Elias said softly, gripping the lead rope firmly but gently. "You're safe. I'm here." Thunder took a hesitant step forward, but a sudden clap of thunder sent him into a panic. He reared up, pulling against the rope, his eyes wide with terror. Elias held his ground, speaking calmly despite the chaos around them. "Easy, Thunder. Easy. You're okay." It took several tense moments, but eventually, Thunder calmed down. Elias stroked the horse's neck, feeling the rapid rise and fall of his chest. "You've been through worse," Elias whispered. "And you've survived. We'll get through this too." The storm passed, but the incident left both Elias and Thunder shaken. That night, as Elias sat beside Thunder in the barn, Marta joined him, carrying 2 mugs of tea. She handed one to Elias and sat down on a bale of hay. "You're doing everything you can for him," she said quietly. "But do you think he'll ever trust fully again? After everything he's been through?" Elias stared at Thunder, who was now peacefully nibbling on hay. "Trust takes time," he replied. "But I believe in him. And I think he's starting to believe in me too." Marta nodded, a faint smile on her lips. Though she still had her doubts, she couldn't ignore the bond forming between her husband and the horse. A few days later, as Elias was working with Thunder in the field, a familiar voice called out from the road. It was Joachim, a young neighbor who often passed by their farm. "Elias!" Joachim shouted, leaning on the fence. "You're really serious about that horse, huh?" Elias straightened up, wiping sweat from his brow. "Serious enough to prove everyone wrong." Joachim chuckled but didn't mock him as others had. Instead, he opened the gate and walked into the field. "You know," he began, "I don't know much about horses, but I've seen you out here every day. If you need an extra set of hands, I'm willing to help." Elias was taken aback by the offer but nodded gratefully. "I could use the help," he admitted. "Thunder's come a long way, but there's still a lot of work to do." Joachim joined Elias in the following days, helping with chores and even assisting in Thunder's training. With his support and Pedro's growing enthusiasm, Elias felt a renewed sense of determination. One sunny afternoon, Elias decided it was time to try something new. He set up a makeshift obstacle course in the field, using wooden poles and barrels to create small jumps and challenges. Thunder had regained enough strength to trot, but Elias wanted to see if the horse still had the agility he might have possessed in his prime. "All right, boy," Elias said, leading Thunder to the start of the course. "Let's see what you've got." At first, Thunder hesitated, his ears flicking nervously as he eyed the obstacles. Elias walked alongside him, guiding him over the poles and encouraging him with soft words. With each successful step, Thunder's confidence grew. By the end of the session, Thunder managed to clear a small jump. It was an awkward, clumsy leap, but it was a leap nonetheless. Elias clapped his hands, his face breaking into a wide grin. "That's my boy," he exclaimed, patting Thunder's neck. "You're doing it." Pedro, who had been watching from the sidelines, ran over, his eyes shining with excitement. "Papa! He did it!" Thunder jumped. Elias laughed, scooping Pedro into his arms. "He did. And he'll do even more if we keep working." Word of Thunder's progress began to spread through the village. Neighbors who once mocked Elias now stopped by the farm to see the horse for themselves. Some came out of curiosity, while others brought small gifts, bales of hay, buckets of oats, and even an old saddle. One evening, Marta watched from the porch as Elias worked with Thunder in the fading light. The horse's movements were more confident now, his posture more regal. Marta couldn't help but smile, though she tried to hide it when Elias approached. "He's not the same horse you brought home," she admitted, handing Elias a cup of water. "You've done something incredible with him." Elias took a sip, his eyes fixed on Thunder. "We've done it together," he said. "I just gave him the chance he deserved." But not everyone was convinced. At the local tavern, a group of men still laughed at the idea of Thunder becoming anything more than a liability. You really think Elias' horse will amount to anything? One man scoffed. He's just wasting his time. Joachim, who had become a staunch supporter of Elias and Thunder, spoke up. You haven't seen what that horse can do, he said firmly. Elias believes in him, and that's more than most of us can say. The room fell silent for a moment before the laughter resumed, but Joachim didn't waver. He knew the truth about Thunder's progress and wasn't afraid to defend it. Back at the farm, Elias and Thunder continued to train, pushing their limits each day. The bond between man and horse grew stronger with every shared moment, every small victory. Thunder was no longer the frightened, skeletal creature Elias had brought home from the auction. He was a survivor, a fighter, and a testament to what faith and perseverance could achieve. One morning, Elias received a letter about a small, local horse show. It wasn't a competition, but rather an exhibition where owners could showcase their horses and share their stories. Elias saw it as an opportunity, not to prove the skeptics wrong, but to show the world what Thunder had become. We're going to that show, boy, Elias told Thunder as he brushed his coat. Not to win, but to tell your story. Pedro overheard and ran into the barn, his face lighting up. Can I come too, Papa? I want to help. Of course, son, Elias said, ruffling his hair. It wouldn't be the same without you. As the day of the show approached, the entire family pitched in to prepare Thunder. Marta, who had been skeptical from the start, helped polish the old saddle Joachim had brought. Pedro decorated the bridle with small ribbons, and Joachim came by to give Thunder a final checkup. You're ready, Thunder, Elias said, standing beside the horse on the morning of the show. Let's show them what you're made of. The day of the exhibition arrived, and the small town buzzed with excitement. It wasn't just a showcase of horses but also a community event filled with laughter, food stalls, and families enjoying the day. The sun shone brightly, casting a golden hue over the arena, where horses of all shapes and sizes were being prepped for their turn in the spotlight. Elias stood beside Thunder, adjusting the saddle one last time. Thunder's coat now gleamed under the sunlight, and his eyes reflected a calm confidence that had been absent for so long. Pedro clutched a small wooden comb, nervously brushing Thunder's mane. Papa, do you think they'll like him? Pedro asked, his voice filled with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Elias knelt beside his son, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. They don't need to like him, Pedro. What matters is that we know how far he's come. Thunder doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. Pedro nodded, though his grip on the comb remained tight. Marta stood nearby, watching silently. Though she had her reservations about the event, she couldn't deny how far Thunder and Elias had come. She even allowed herself a small, proud smile when no one was looking. As their turn approached, Joachim arrived, his arms full of equipment. You ready, Elias? He asked, patting Thunder on the neck. The arena's full. People are curious to see what you've been working on. Elias nodded, taking a deep breath. We're as ready as we'll ever be. When their names were called, the crowd fell quiet. Elias led Thunder into the arena, with Pedro trailing behind, carrying a small bucket of water for later. Thunder's hooves clopped against the dirt, echoing in the stillness. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as people recognized the horse. Isn't that the skeleton from the auction? One voice whispered. How is it even standing? Another added. Elias ignored the chatter, focusing on Thunder. He guided the horse to the center of the arena, where they stood for a moment, letting the crowd take in the sight of a horse who had defied every expectation. This is Thunder, Elias began, his voice steady despite the hundreds of eyes on him. A few months ago, no one believed he could make it. He was weak, scared, and written off as worthless. But today, he stands here, not as a broken horse, but as a survivor. The audience listened intently as Elias spoke, his words carrying the weight of his journey. Pedro stood by his father's side, his small frame radiating pride. Thunder, sensing the energy of the moment, stood tall, his ears flicking forward as if to say, "Look at me now." Elias signaled to Pedro, who handed him a lead rope. With a soft click of his tongue, Elias guided Thunder through a series of basic movements they had practiced tirelessly. Thunder trotted smoothly, his steps confident and measured. The crowd watched in silence, their earlier skepticism melting away with each graceful movement. Then came the first obstacle, a low jump set in the center of the arena. Elias paused, glancing at Thunder. The horse hesitated, his ears twitching as he sized up the challenge. "You can do this, boy," Elias whispered, stroking Thunder's neck. "Just like we practiced." With a deep breath, Elias gave the signal. Thunder trotted forward, gathering momentum before leaping over the bar. It wasn't perfect, his back hooves barely cleared the jump, but it was enough. The crowd erupted in applause, their initial doubts replaced with genuine admiration. Pedro cheered loudly from the sidelines, his small fists pumping in the air. Marta, watching from the stands, felt a swell of emotion she hadn't expected. For the first time, she understood why Elias had never given up on Thunder. As Elias guided Thunder through the rest of the routine, the horse grew more confident with each step. The obstacles became increasingly difficult, higher jumps, tighter turns, but Thunder tackled them all with determination. The bond between man and horse was evident in every movement, every gesture. By the time they reached the final challenge, the audience was on the edge of their seats. The last obstacle was the highest jump of the day, a bar set slightly higher than anything Thunder had attempted before. Elias hesitated, his heart pounding. He knew the risk, it was possible Thunder wouldn't make it, that he might stumble or refuse. But then he looked into Thunder's eyes and saw something he hadn't seen before, trust. Thunder believed in him, just as Elias had always believed in Thunder. "We've got this," Elias murmured. "Let's show them what we can do." Thunder stepped forward, his ears pricked, his muscles coiled like a spring. The arena fell silent, the tension thick in the air. Elias gave the signal, and Thunder surged forward, his hooves thundering against the dirt. As they approached the jump, time seemed to slow. Thunder leapt into the air, his body stretching toward the bar. The crowd held its breath as the horse soared over the obstacle. His hooves grazed the bar ever so slightly, causing it to wobble, but it stayed in place. Thunder landed gracefully on the other side, his chest heaving with exertion. For a moment, there was silence. Then the crowd erupted into cheers, their applause echoing through the arena. Pedro ran onto the field, throwing his arms around Thunder's neck. "You did it, Thunder. You did it," he cried. Elias stood beside them, his chest swelling with pride. He stroked Thunder's mane, whispering, "I knew you could." The crowd's applause thundered through the arena, but for Elias, the noise faded into the background. He was focused on Thunder, who stood tall and proud, his chest heaving as he caught his breath. This was their moment, a culmination of countless days of hardship, doubt, and perseverance. Pedro danced excitedly around Thunder, his laughter bubbling over like a stream breaking through rocks. "Papa, Thunder was amazing. Did you see how high he jumped?" Elias knelt down, pulling Pedro into a hug. "I saw, son. He's shown everyone what he's capable of, just like I knew he would." As they turned to leave the arena, the announcer's voice echoed over the loudspeakers, halting them in their tracks. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's give one more round of applause for Thunder and his owner, Elias. Their performance today isn't just about skill, it's about resilience and the incredible bond between a man and his horse." The crowd responded with even louder cheers, but not everyone was clapping. In a quiet corner of the stands, a small group of skeptical farmers whispered among themselves. "It's just luck," one of them muttered. "That horse won't last another month." Elias noticed their dismissive glances, but he didn't let it bother him. He wasn't here for them. He was here for Thunder, for Pedro, and for the promise he'd made to himself to never give up. Back at the staging area, Elias untied Thunder's saddle, letting the horse rest. Joachim approached with a wide grin, holding a canteen of water. "You've done it, Elias. They're talking about you all over the stands. People can't believe that's the same horse from the auction." Elias nodded, pouring water into a trough for Thunder. They may not have believed in him before, but Thunder didn't need their belief. He just needed someone to give him a chance. As Thunder drank deeply, Joachim leaned closer. "Did you see the judge's reaction? I think you've got a shot at something bigger today." Elias raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Joachim grinned. "Just wait and see." As the competition drew to a close, the announcer called for everyone's attention. "Before we announce the final winners, we'd like to present a special award. This prize goes to a participant who has shown exceptional perseverance, dedication, and heart. It's not just about winning, it's about embodying the true spirit of this event." The audience quieted as the announcer continued. "Today, this award goes to Elias and Thunder." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Even the skeptical farmers from earlier exchanged surprised glances. Pedro's jaw dropped, and he tugged on Elias's sleeve. "Papa, they said our names." Elias stood frozen for a moment, disbelief washing over him. Marta, who had been watching from the stands, pressed a hand to her mouth, her eyes glistening with tears. Slowly, Elias guided Thunder back into the arena, where the applause grew louder with every step. The head judge stepped forward, holding a plaque inscribed with their names. "Elias, what you've done with Thunder is remarkable. This horse isn't just a survivor, he's a testament to what faith, hard work, and compassion can achieve. You've inspired everyone here today." Elias accepted the plaque, his hands trembling slightly. He turned to the crowd, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Thunder was discarded, written off as worthless. But he proved that no matter how broken something seems, with love and effort, it can rise again. "Thank you for giving us the chance to share our story." Pedro, unable to contain his excitement, ran forward and hugged Thunder's neck. "You're the best, Thunder. I knew you could do it." As the family left the arena, strangers approached to shake Elias's hand and pet Thunder. Even the skeptical farmers had softened, offering hesitant but sincere congratulations. Joachim, standing by the exit, clapped Elias on the back. "See? I told you they'd come around." Marta joined them, her expression softer than Elias had seen in months. "You've proven me wrong, Elias," she admitted, her voice tinged with admiration. "Thunder isn't just a horse. He's a symbol of everything you've been fighting for." Elias smiled, his heart full. "He's more than I ever imagined, Marta. And this is just the beginning." As they walked home that evening, the sun dipping low on the horizon, Elias glanced at Thunder, who trotted alongside them with renewed vigor. He knew their journey was far from over. But for the first time in a long while, Elias felt a deep, unshakable certainty. They were ready for whatever came next. The sun had set by the time Elias and his family returned to their humble farm, their journey illuminated by the soft glow of moonlight. Thunder trotted beside Elias, his coat gleaming faintly in the silver light. Though the day had been long and exhausting, the warmth of their triumph lingered, casting a glow over the family's spirits. As they reached the stable, Elias guided Thunder inside, speaking softly to him. "You did it, my friend. You showed everyone what you're capable of." Thunder snorted softly, lowering his head as if in acknowledgement. Elias carefully removed the plaque from his bag and placed it on a shelf above Thunder's stall, a visible reminder of their shared victory. Pedro bounded into the stable, clutching a handful of fresh hay. "Can I feed him tonight, Papa?" he asked eagerly. Elias smiled and nodded. "Of course, son. He's earned it." As Pedro carefully placed the hay into Thunder's trough, Marta stood in the doorway, watching the scene with a thoughtful expression. She stepped forward, her voice soft but steady. "Elias, I never thought I'd see the day when this farm felt so alive again. You've done something I didn't think was possible. Elias turned to her, his eyes filled with gratitude. It wasn't just me, Marta. Thunder taught me as much as I taught him. He reminded me that even when the odds are against us, we can still rise. The days that followed were filled with a new sense of purpose. Word of Thunder's performance at the competition had spread through the village, and people began to see Elias and his horse in a different light. Neighbors who had once mocked him now stopped by to offer congratulations or ask for advice on their own animals. Even the skeptical farmers who had dismissed Thunder at the auction admitted they had been wrong. One afternoon, Joachim arrived at the farm with a cart of supplies. "Thought you might need these," he said, unloading sacks of grain and tools. "Call it a little thank you for showing us all what hard work and belief can do." Elias shook his hand firmly. "Thank you, Joachim. This means a lot to us." Joachim grinned. "Don't mention it. Just keep inspiring us." With the renewed support of the community, Elias began making improvements to the farm. He repaired the fences, expanded Thunder's stable, and planted a small vegetable garden with Pedro's help. Marta, too, found herself drawn into the renewed energy of the farm, baking bread to share with neighbors who stopped by and helping Elias plan for the future. Despite their progress, Elias remained grounded. He knew their journey wasn't about accolades or recognition, it was about the bond he had forged with Thunder and the lessons they had learned together. He spent his mornings training Thunder, not for another competition, but to strengthen their partnership. They worked on building trust, refining Thunder's movements, and exploring the land beyond the farm. One morning, as Elias saddled Thunder for a ride, Pedro approached him with a notebook in hand. "Papa, can I write about Thunder? I want to tell everyone his story." Elias crouched down, placing a hand on Pedro's shoulder. "That's a wonderful idea, son. Thunder's story is worth sharing. It's a story about hope, and the world could always use more of that." Over time, Pedro's stories about Thunder began circulating in the village, reaching even those who had never set foot on their farm. The tales of the horse who had defied all odds to find strength and purpose resonated deeply with people, reminding them that even the most unlikely beginnings could lead to incredible outcomes. One day, as Elias was brushing Thunder's coat, a stranger arrived at the farm. He was a tall man with a kind face and a notebook tucked under his arm. "Are you Elias?" he asked, extending a hand. Elias shook it, nodding. "That's me. Can I help you?" The man smiled. "My name is Miguel. I heard about Thunder and wanted to learn more. I work with a foundation that supports struggling farmers and animals in need. Your story has inspired us, and we'd like to feature you in our newsletter. Would you be willing to share your journey?" Elias hesitated for a moment, then glanced at Thunder. The horse nudged him gently, as if to say, "Go ahead." Elias smiled. "If it helps others believe in second chances, then yes. I'd be happy to share our story." The newsletter featuring Elias and Thunder quickly gained attention, drawing visitors from nearby towns who wanted to meet the remarkable pair. Some came to hear their story, while others brought horses in need of care, hoping Elias's methods could work miracles for them too. Elias approached each new challenge with the same patience and determination that had guided him with Thunder. "Every horse has a story," he told Pedro one evening as they worked together in the stable. "And it's our job to listen, to understand, and to give them the chance to write a new chapter." Pedro nodded solemnly, his admiration for his father evident. "I want to be like you, Papa. I want to help animals too." Elias ruffled his son's hair, his heart swelling with pride. "You already are, Pedro. And someday, you'll do even greater things." As the seasons changed, so did life on the farm. Thunder grew stronger with each passing day, his coat shiny and his stride confident. The farm, once quiet and overlooked, had become a place of hope and renewal. Families visited to see Thunder, to hear his story, and to find inspiration in the resilience of both man and horse. On the anniversary of the day Elias had brought Thunder home, the family gathered around the stable. Marta held a loaf of fresh-baked bread, Pedro carried a small bouquet of wildflowers, and Elias brought out the plaque they had won at the competition. Together, they hung the plaque above the stable door, a testament to their journey. As they stood there, Elias spoke softly, his voice filled with emotion. "This isn't just about Thunder. It's about all of us. It's about believing in something when no one else does. It's about fighting for what matters, no matter how hard it gets." Marta took his hand, her eyes shining with tears. "You've shown us that anything is possible, Elias. Thunder isn't just a horse, he's a part of this family." Pedro leaned against Thunder, his small hands stroking the horse's neck. "And he always will be." That night, as the stars blanketed the sky, Elias sat by the stable, listening to the soft sounds of thunder resting. He reflected on how far they had come, not just in distance, but in spirit. Thunder had taught him that even in the face of doubt and despair, there was always a way forward. As he rose to leave, Elias whispered one last promise to Thunder. "No matter what comes next, we'll face it together." And as the gentle rustling of the wind carried his words into the night, Elias knew one thing for certain: their journey was far from over, and the best was yet to come. If this story of Elias and Thunder touched your heart, don't let it end here. Share this incredible journey of hope, resilience, and second chances with your friends and family. Together, we can remind the world of the power of belief and perseverance. Did you feel inspired by how Thunder defied all odds to become a symbol of strength and hope? Let us know in the comments below. Your thoughts mean the world to us. What was your favorite part of the story? Have you ever witnessed or experienced something similar? Share your insights and stories, we'd love to hear from you. And if you're as moved as we are by stories like these, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. By hitting the notification bell, you'll never miss another inspiring tale of courage and transformation. Let's create a community that celebrates hope and compassion. Help us spread the message far and wide by sharing this video with someone who might need a reminder that no matter how dire the situation, there's always a way forward. Together, let's keep the spirit of Elias and Thunder alive, showing the world that even the smallest spark of belief can ignite extraordinary change. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story full of heart, hope, and inspiration.